Benvenuto a Venezia. Sol doge Enrico Dando.
As the industry prepares to enter an era of new platforms, new technologies, and maybe a little uncertainty, it feels strangely comforting to get a new Civilization title. Brave New World, the second expansion to Civilization 5, is out this week for PC and Mac, bringing with it a bunch of new features and mechanics that significantly augment the core game. Like last year's Gods and Kings, Brave New World does not aim to make the game more accessible or overhaul the familiar empire-building formula. Instead, it preaches to the converted and breathes new life into a game that already claimed more sleepless nights than I would care to admit. At the most reductive level, Brave New World sets its sights on the second half of the game, while Gods and Kings focused on the first half. Of course, there are the new civs, units, scenarios, and buildings you'd expect from an expansion pack, but the most significant features appear in the later eras of the game in the form of the overhauled cultural and diplomatic systems.
Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
If you ever try to reach a cultural victory in Civ 5, then you're probably already familiar with its tedium. Filling up social policy after social policy didn't just put large sections of the game on autopilot, but it felt completely detached from the role culture actually plays in our world. Now that path to victory has been redone and is centered on a new yield called tourism. To win, you'll need to make sure your tourism exceeds the culture of every other Civ, making yours the most influential civilization in the world. There are a couple of minigames that support this. New guilds produce great artists, musicians, and writers, who can then be consumed to generate their own real-life great works. These great works can be stored in buildings and wonders to start generating tourism, but to maximize their output, they must be curated to match that wonder's guidelines. For instance, the Oxford University requires works from different eras and civilizations other than my own, so I ended up swapping my Brazilian Canterbury Tales for India's War and Peace. There's also a new archaeology minigame. Ancient battles that took place in the early eras of your game will produce dig sites, which you can use to collect tourism-boosting artifacts. The system carries with it a difficulty curve that can be a bit frustrating at first, as learning those new key wonders and diplomatic modifiers are really important to winning at higher difficulty levels. In addition, works of art seem to be much more important than those of music or writing, but it's still a great step forward, making culture much less insular and consistently more engaging. As my humble Brazilian civilization fostered the creation of the Great Gatsby and adoration of the Magi amidst years of strife and war, it really added a sense of majesty to my fictional world. And like so many parts of Civilization 5, the remarkable presentation elevates these moments to heights that exceed their core gameplay function. Along with culture's sweeping overhaul comes myriad smaller changes, not the least of which are the redone social policy trees in the brand new ideology system. Once you reach the modern era, you will choose your civilization's ideology from freedom, autocracy, or order, each of which carry their own set of tenets, providing boosts similar to the social policy perks. But they also play a more grand role, establishing some diplomatic frameworks and alliances as the game heads towards 2050. This is most visible in the brand new World Congress, a global organization that gets established even before ideologies are chosen. This body grows over time, eventually turning into the United Nations, but throughout the game it acts as a regular global touchpoint, allowing for resolutions to be proposed and voted on every 30 turns. These resolutions can provide funding to culture or science, embargo specific resources, or if a civ has been bullying the world, you can even enact a tax for their army. But similar to the religion system, how useful you find the Congress depends entirely on how much effort you put into it and what victory condition you're pursuing. It was also easy to see inequalities develop in the early days of Congress that remained throughout the game, resulting in one or two leaders who held on to the majority of the votes throughout. If you want to get the most out of it, you'll need to carefully manage several other diplomatic factors that can subtly affect relationships, like placing diplomats instead of spies in other capitals, maintaining trade routes, or keeping declarations of friendship active. But even if you choose to largely ignore the system, one vote can have severe repercussions, as I saw when I backed Venice's proposal to make freedom the world's preferred ideology. I made a couple of friends, but as I learned, it only takes one enemy with a large army to make things turn ugly.
Bom, sendo assim, não temos mais o que falar.
Gods and Kings included some significant AI changes, and the World Congress and the UN made me interact with that AI much more frequently than I was used to. This made the game feel like it was truly taking place on a global stage, instead of just on the continents that I occupied. This is also the case with the new trade route system, which can send gold, science, and even religion between civilizations or your own cities. These end up being crucial to your civ's financial health, and can even help your culture spread across the globe. And then, of course, there are the new civilizations. 9 new civs and leaders come with Brave New World, each carrying unique units and abilities. Morocco is a trade-friendly civ that flourishes in the desert. Brazil's Carnaval makes it a culture and tourism powerhouse. And the Indonesians can find precious resources across multiple continents.
Lirdahat apanggung kunang.
But I found Venice to be the most interesting. They cannot build settlers and found new cities, but they can purchase city-states. This shakes one of the core principles of the game, and in doing so it opens up some fun new strategies. In my game, they were a financial force, accumulating a huge treasury through their extra trade routes, and with some carefully puppeted city-states and smart diplomacy, I was able to lead the United Nations to elect me as the world leader.
You've triumphed over your foes through the art of diplomacy.
But regardless of your preferred playstyle, you're likely to find some fun new toys to play with in the new set of 9, and of course, each bring with them their own personality, art style, and brilliant score. After playing Brave New World for a couple weeks, it seems impossible to go back to Gods and Kings. The new systems add fresh gameplay mechanics that add some much needed depth to the final third of the game, but what might be most surprising is how well everything fits together. With all the features that have been added since the base game released 3 years ago, it would have been easy to end up with a game that felt disjointed and unfocused, like a second or third story addition to a house that was never meant to be. But instead the game feels cohesive and whole.
I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
Undoubtedly, there will be some tweaking and balancing needs that reveal themselves over time, and there's a definite learning curve to the new features, although there are a ton of new advisor suggestions and tooltips to help you along the way.
Verbing.
If Brave New World is the last chapter in the Civilization V story, it is a fitting conclusion. The Civ 5 of 2013 has come a long way from that game of 2010, and despite some minor issues, it truly lives up to its namesake. What happens next in the franchise remains to be seen, but for now, Firaxis has built a game that looks to stand the test of time. I've collected my delegates' votes and decreed Civ 5 Brave New World to be a 5 out of 5. So that is what I thought of Brave New World. It is out July 9th in North America and July 12th overseas. And it's also worth noting that it includes the espionage and religion systems that were in Gods and Kings. So if you skipped last year's expansion, you're only missing out on those 9 civs and scenarios that came with it. Now there's a ton of content in the game that I was unable to touch on in my review, so if you have any additional questions, and I'm sure you will, leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them. In addition, I was unable to play with the multiplayer in my time with the game, so if that is your primary way of playing, I suggest that you wait until the game is out and check out some reports from the community. That's it for me. I am Zac Minor, and I will see you next time.